popychadłem, mówię stop.
This song became a voice for hundreds of thousands of Polish women. It talks about violence and injustices against them and symbolizes resistance and perseverance in the face of intimidation. Massive protests began in Poland after the Constitutional Court imposed a ban on nearly all abortions in the country on the 22nd of October. Poland already had one of the most restrictive abortion laws in the EU, only allowing abortion in cases of fetal abnormality, rape or incest, or if the mother's life is in danger. That is the reason for the low number of around 1,000 official abortions per year. In comparison, Germany, a country with around double the population of Poland, has more than 10 times as many legal abortions per year. But a low number of legal abortions doesn't mean Polish women don't find other ways. Tens of thousands go abroad for the surgery or order pills online. These alternatives are illegal and either very expensive or risky for their health. Now, the court's recent decision ruled that pregnancy terminations will be illegal even in cases where a fetus is diagnosed with a serious and irreversible birth defect. Since this is the reason for 98% of all legal abortions in Poland at the moment, the ruling therefore effectively bans abortion in the country. The decision prompted huge outcry not only among rights activists but also among hundreds of thousands of ordinary citizens. Helene Fredriksson, a PhD fellow at University of Copenhagen who is studying law and policies of Eastern European countries, thinks this step is a part of the government's illiberal agenda that is restricting certain human rights, including women's rights.
So in the last couple of weeks, we have been witnessing the biggest protest in Poland since the end of communism, the end of the Soviet Union in 1989. So it's a very historical moment.
Fredriksson states the latest proposed legislation on abortion is part of democratic backsliding in Poland. She blames two main factors for the decision: the incumbent far-right government led by the Law and Justice Party that is pushing its populist conservative ideas, and the Catholic Church, which is known to be particularly close to the ruling party and has a big influence in the traditionally religious country.
So we have this, you can say, political movement of the government, and then we have the influence of the Catholic Church that has for many, many years been interested in tightening the abortion laws.
It is not the first time that the ruling government has tried to tighten the abortion laws in Poland. In 2016, they had to drop a comparable draft because of huge public protests known as the Black Protest or All Poland Women's Strike.
I think part of why the government have moved so actively for tightening these abortion laws is because they feel that there's an environment in Poland that would be supportive of such a move.
The magnitude of the recent protests shows that the government was obviously wrong with this expectation.
I think they have been surprised by the protests that we are witnessing right now because of a couple of factors. One, they have been surprised by the sheer size and durability of the protest, and secondly, by the diversity of the people that are joining the protest. The government has not been very good at measuring the public opinion on abortions. They have actually mispredicted it. They have kind of like overstepped what they thought was their possibilities for how far they can go with their illiberal agenda, so to speak. Maybe because they have not realize that using the constitutional tribunal would actually provoke a lot of people. I think they have used the constitutional tribunal because they couldn't get it through in parliament. They tried that in May this year and it was outvoted, and therefore they went to make it through the constitutional tribunal in order to be able to say, this is not a political question, this is a question about complying with our constitution. People who are maybe not that concerned about abortion issues might find it problematic that they are trying to make policy outside of the parliament. They have simply tried to depoliticize the issue, but actually ended up politicizing it way more.
Another key role in leading the government to believe they could tighten the abortion laws with public support is the stigmatization of abortion.
Even in countries where we have free abortion, there's still stigma surrounding abortions. I mean, even in Denmark, it's free abortion is not really something that's socially really looking down upon. A lot of women, they still feel some kind of shame with having an abortion done, and it's not always something that is publicly talked about. And then if we move to a setting such as Poland that are so deeply rooted in a religious understanding of family and women's roles, this kind of stigma will, I would say, naturally be even bigger, especially because you also have an official line from government and official policies that states that abortion is something you should only do in very, very restricted cases.
Many women are seeking the right to terminate a pregnancy while also fighting the stigma attached to it. One of them is a 25-year-old Latvian expat living in Poland who spoke on the condition of anonymity. She had an abortion in 2018 because her pregnancy posed a health risk to her due to some complications.
There is big stigma. If you will say, I'm going to make an abortion, not everybody will understand why you are doing like that, because for this stigma, and you need to explain why I'm doing it. It's for my health.
Even though there is this huge stigma around abortions, there's still actually a growing majority who thinks that abortion should be more free in Poland as well.
A series of opinion polls for the country's leading newspapers revealed that despite stigma, the majority of the population, as much as between 66% and 73%, oppose the tribunal's anti-abortion law, a group too big to only consist of women's rights activists.
It was also people that are not belonging to these movements, people that's traditionally not going to the streets, that has actually joined in, which I think is due to the way that they've tried to get this abortion ban going this time with the use of the Constitutional Tribunal. And I think that was really a big surprise for the government, that suddenly they were also dealing with people that normally didn't go on the streets, and with people that were not necessarily very strong supporters of women's rights, but are mainly concerned with the democratic direction of the country.
Alexandra Kurowska, a Polish student who attended protests against the anti-abortion laws in Zurich, Switzerland, explained that these protests are about more than just abortion.
Protests in Poland currently became not only against the abortion, but also it combines the hate against the current government. Many people are not actually protesting for the abortion law. They are actually fighting the government. They just united together. Now this whole big wave of hatred against government was created.
That is visible in recent poll results for the Law and Justice Party, which decreased from 41% in early October to 34% in late November.
Quite a big amount of people that used to support the government that are now saying they wouldn't vote for them. So we are definitely witnessing something historical in the sense that you're actually seeing people that are traditionally supporting this government now at least questioning their right to make this kind of decisions and to having the power in these times right now.
So far, the Polish government has reacted by delaying the implementation of the controversial ruling as protests still continue.
The protests are going on vividly in many cities, despite that we're not really hearing about it in the international media. The government needs to get a grasp of how serious or maybe even how dangerous are these protests that's happening.
Neither Fredriksson nor Kurowska can tell exactly what will happen, but both agree that the government finds itself in a difficult situation.
I think it's maybe more likely that the government will try to come up with some kind of compromise between the court ruling and the demands that are put forward by the protest. The government is really buying its time in figuring out how can they meet some of the demands of the protest while also still staying on course with their agenda.
Probably it will go back to what has been till now, or nothing will happen, and we will have to wait 4 years for new elections.
It was overall stigma surrounding abortion which made the Polish government come forward with stricter abortion laws. But the overall displeasure against the government throughout the Polish society led to a surprisingly big backlash against the decision, prompting those in power to delay implementation and possibly seek a compromise.
Nie sprawdzaj więc, czy we mnie for you.